Thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm going to tell you a story that parents are going to be so thrilled to hear, especially if your kids are struggling and they're worried about what their future is going to be like. So before I start my talk, one thing I always tell myself and my kids and my students is that all you can do is do the best you can be. Never try to copy anybody else because it's too much weight to copy. And remember, you have very little control over anything but what you actually do. So all you can do is do your best. So now let me tell you my story. I'm 63 years old. I've written 6 books. I'm an Inc. Entrepreneur of the Year winner. I've won awards for my podcast. I've won awards for my books. And I've won awards for teaching. And you would think that it was easy for me, but it wasn't. When I graduated high school, my senior year of high school, I took the college boards. And my dad was very excited. My dad thought he's going to go to a really good university. But my grades in high school were just a little bit above a B, not particularly great. So I took the SAT, and the SAT, the top score you can get is 1,600. My board scores came back. My mom calls my dad rushes home from work, and we open it up together. My dad looks at it, and he's quiet. And he's just there. My mom said, what's wrong? She goes, I think it's just the time he took the test. And my mom said, what? What's the score? 725. And my dad goes, maybe that's only half the score. They didn't give you the other half of the score. So my dad contacts them because you get 400 points just for signing your name to it. So my dad contacts them and they go, yeah, he only scored 725. My dad goes, how could you just score 725 when they give you 400 points for your name? So I took the board score again, and if you would have bet on this, you would have made a fortune that I would score exactly the same score again, 725. And my father goes, I can't believe you scored 725. I said, Dad, if you add them together, I did 1450. But my dad said, yeah, right, but the only score they're going to look at is you each scored 725, not even a small improvement. So the guidance counselor called my father into school. My guidance counselor said to my dad, he's not college material. He's got to think about doing something else with his life. And my dad said, do you know what happened in shop? And what happened in shop was I was making a stool. I put the stool in the kiln, heated it up, and I'm a very social person. And I was talking to my classmates, and I forgot I had left it in the kiln. And all of a sudden, my teacher said he smelled something, and he looked at the kiln, and it was red hot. He told everybody to dive for the floor, and it blew up, and shrapnel went all over. And there were 17 kids in the class. If he had not told my classmates, right now I'd probably be in prison for murdering 17 people in my class. So I did end up getting accepted to one school, West Virginia University, and I got accepted to their main campus. And I went there and I graduated in 4 years. And when I graduated in 1982, I was going to be a career sports writer, and interest rates were 18%. And 10 major newspapers folded. And I'd gotten a full-time offer from Philadelphia's biggest afternoon paper, and that paper folded 2 months before I graduated. So I ended up working as a sports writer and editor for a weekly newspaper, making incredibly low money even at that particular time. And then I had met my wife, and I realized that I couldn't afford the life that she wanted to be accustomed to and for us to be able to have a family. And so I decided I had to go change careers. So I applied to 250 businesses from my hometown of Coatesville to Philadelphia, and I got rejected by all 250 businesses. So I went to the unemployment office, and I saw a sign that said this company was looking for a tax collector. I needed to make an income, and I needed to go change careers. So I worked as a tax collector. And while I was working as a tax collector, we decided we were going to go buy a house, and I needed to make more money. So I started a side business called Marc Kramer Promotions, Build Your Business with Bumper Stickers. And the first 37 businesses I went to, again, I got rejected by all 37 of them. So I changed it to Marc Kramer Promotions, we can get anything. And would you believe it, the first 6 clients I had were bumper stickers. I couldn't believe it. So then one of the early clients I had was a mom and pop mall called the Downtown Marketplace. And the owner of the marketplace said, I'm looking for a haunted house in 2 weeks. My assistant manager hasn't been able to deliver. I'll pay you $5,000 if you can deliver this haunted house. I got 5 theater students from the local university, told them what I wanted to do. They wired the room. We got sheets from another hotel, wired that up. And after that evening, the owner said, how would you like to be my assistant manager? And I said, you have one. He goes, not anymore, I don't. The job is yours if you want it. So I became assistant manager, the chief operating officer, and I started 3 businesses for him. Well, I decided that I had peaked at working for him and I was looking for something else, and I saw that Penn State University, one of the biggest schools in the United States, was looking for somebody to start a business incubator. And a business incubator is where you help startup companies get launched. And I thought, oh, that would be really cool. I really love working with small businesses. So I saw the ad, but the ad said that you had to have a master's degree or a PhD. But I thought, I'll apply anyway, and I sent my resume and I attached 3 newspaper stories I appeared in for starting other small businesses for this guy. Lucky for me, and this is where life is that you have to get lucky. You can work really hard and you have to get off the couch and you have to put yourself in a position to get lucky, but I got lucky. My boss saw my resume and he looked at it and he saw no master's degree and he threw it on the junk pile. His wife walks in the room as he tells me this story later, and she walks by, looks at my resume, picks it up and said, I've seen what this guy can do, you should interview him. Now, she doesn't walk by at that particular time. There's another resume thrown on top of mine, and I'm not even here talking to you all. So she goes and tells him he should interview me. So he brings me in, and I interview with him, and I tell him, here is my vision for this incubator. And at that time, it was in an old cafeteria in an old elementary school outside Philadelphia on a back road. But I had a vision for what I wanted to do. So I left and he said, I'll let you know in a week after I decided. So I drive home a half an hour, I get out of the car, and my wife comes out and she says to me, you're not gonna believe it, Dr. Larry Cody called. He said, you got the job. I said, he told me it was gonna take a week. Didn't take a week. I ended up working for Penn State, and I started the Penn State Technology Development Center, and we grew from 1 company to 53 companies, and we led the nation in the number of women and minority-started companies. I even started the first virtual incubator. Well, while I was at Penn State and I was working with entrepreneurs and realizing they needed access to capital, I wanted to be able to match our entrepreneurs with wealthy people, angel investors, but there was no way to do it. There was no way for entrepreneurs to meet rich people if they didn't know them. So I went to my boss and I said, I would like to start the Pennsylvania Private Investors Group, and I would like to be able to start a formally organized investor angel group. And we went to the treasurer of Penn State, and the treasurer said, now what wealthy person would want to invest in a startup and take all that risk? I said, the same people invested in Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. People want to buy that lottery ticket. So I ended up being recruited by the governor of Pennsylvania to start a new technology council, and I was recruited by those people, and I interviewed for that job, and I wasn't selected. Another guy was selected, and after 1 week of dealing with the board, he quit. And they came back to me and said, would you be interested in that job? I said yes, and that job really exploded my career because I ended up working for 6 founding CEOs, all who ran public companies, and within a couple of years we had 15 CEOs who ran public companies and was one of the most prestigious boards in the Philadelphia area. And from that, I told my board when they brought me on, I wanted to start the first formally organized investor angel network, and they loved this idea. And so we started it, and we had 53 wealthy people that joined it, and we had 3 companies that they invested in right away, and all 3 companies went public. And the people were contacting us from all over the world, and I ended up on the cover of Profit magazine. And my father couldn't believe it. Here was somebody who scored 725 in his college boards, who the guidance counselor said he wasn't college material. So while I was at Penn State said, listen, you know the job said you had to have a master's degree, so you have to go and get a master's degree. We suggest that you get it right here. I was in the first executive MBA program that Penn State had in the Philadelphia area. So I got onto that program, got my degree, and then the people who were looking to start this tech council they had a requirement that you had to have an MBA. So I fit that requirement, and I ended up getting that job. So we grew that organization from the 6 founding members to 1,200 corporations, and we started this angel group. And pretty soon we had people wanting to start angel groups all over the United States, and now, of course, it's all over the world. So it was an amazing experience working for them. But I told them I'll stay 5 years, and then I want to go and do something else. I want to have my own company. I want to go and start a company that I can make a fortune, but I want to give that fortune away, and I want to do positive things for society. That was my absolute goal to go and do. So I ended up becoming CEO of another company called Mixed Media Works, and I turned that company around. And because I turned that company around, I decided to write a book called Small Business Turnaround. And nobody had ever written a book before on how to turn around a small business. There are lots of books on how to turn around large businesses, but not small businesses. So I had written my first book called Power Networking for McGraw-Hill, and I went to my editor and I said, I got this idea for this book, and she goes, nobody's gonna buy a book on how to turn around a small business. She said, we're not interested. So I wrote to 47 publishers, and all of them turned me down. I even said they don't have to pay me in advance, and that I would cover their losses. Now, my wife was not thrilled of me promising them that I would cover their losses, but I really believed in this idea. And so all of them turned me down, and I went back to my publisher, and she said, listen, there's one guy named Jerry Calamese at Adams Media, and I think that Jerry might be interested because he ran a small business that got in trouble. So she contacted Jerry and sent him my proposal. He didn't call me. He sent me back a contract with a check, and he bought my book. And that book was named one of the 30 best business books in 2000 by Executive Book Summaries, which was the most prestigious award you could win. And the first week that that book was published, it sold out everywhere that it was in the United States. And that book did really well. So then I was looking for different ventures to go and start, that I could go and get my fortune. And I was doing consulting for startup companies. And I came upon this idea. I had been working for the Wharton School, and that was an amazing experience. I taught 10 years for the Wharton School in the MBA program, and a bank from Guatemala asked me to come and speak to their wealthiest customers. And while I was there, a guy came up to me and said, you know, I saw that you work for a factoring firm where they sell receivables, they buy receivables and fund them. He said, I kind of do something like that. I take a suitcase full of money, 2 bodyguards, and I fund the vendors for Pepsi of Guatemala. I thought, well, that's really interesting. He said, yeah, I make $200,000 a year just working 1 day a week. So I thought, what if I grew that and made that into a very large business? So I wrote a plan, and I went back to a bank that I've been doing consulting for, and I told them about this idea, and they go, you're gonna need at least $1 billion to open the door for this. So I said, yeah, that's right, I'm gonna need it. So they made introductions to people on Wall Street, and I got investment money from Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, and Merrill Lynch. Now those are 3 super well-known names that have survived everything in collapses in the economy in the United States. And so I got this approval in 2007, built it in 2008, and then the market collapsed around the world. And unfortunately for me, what 3 major Wall Street firms collapsed? The only 3? Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, and Merrill Lynch. And they had put up $3.2 billion, and I lost it all in a night. And I still have my marketing clients, but they also informed me that they were canceling my contract. So I had 0 income. So I went from making a lot of money, thinking I'm gonna have my own private jet, to making nothing. So we went to go and try to raise money for that, and I found that there were people who were interested in putting 50 million, 100 million, but that was not going to be enough for us to go and do that. So I moved on from that, and a couple years later, I'm asked to come to University of Monterrey in Mexico City, and they had asked me to go and talk about entrepreneurship. And while I was talking about entrepreneurship, I read this article in Forbes magazine that said if you had a business bank account and your bank account got hacked and your money was stolen, that the bank wasn't liable. So I went looking for insurance, there wasn't. So I ended up writing a plan, creating an insurance policy, and we launched it. And I got backed by 2 big insurance companies, And those two insurance companies thought, oh my God, this guy's gonna make us $1 billion. And I was featured in Forbes, Fortune, Wall Street Journal, Fox News. And what happened? Nobody bought the product. And so I ended up moving on from that. And over the years, I've done a lot of startups, but two of the startups I started were in podcasting, called The Best Business Minds. And we have listeners in 77 countries. And in that podcast, which is live every Friday, I interview different business book authors. What I didn't know was that podcasts weren't live. And now that show is booked all the way until 2026, every single Friday. And since I've been here in Vietnam, and the experience has been amazing, I've worked with incredibly smart young people, just like the young people you're going to hear speak after me. And I worked with this couple who are students of ours who started a company called MyPal, and we started a venture called Business Plan Factory, where you write one sentence in, and you get a whole business plan in 15 minutes. It just fills the whole thing out for you. So my message to all of you is, you heard about all the fairs I had, but what did I do? I just kept getting off the ground. Why? Because you really have no choice. You can't go, you can take one day off and feel sorry for yourself, but you have to get up off the ground, because that's just what life is. You have to show up, you have to get lucky, and you have to just be yourself, because no matter who you are, you have some kind of magic. Everybody has something special about them, and you don't need to go and wear mock turtlenecks like Steve Jobs or wear hoodies like Mark Zuckerberg. You just need to be yourself, and people are going to embrace you, and you're going to be successful. Thank you so much.